thinking more about the specifics on how you can leverage AI within your organization, Asia and I are going to talk through maybe a specific way or a challenge that AI would have made things a lot easier, or just a way to make things more efficient. And looking forward to your comments in the forum space for this class as well. We're going to talk through maybe some specific prompts, specific directions that can really help use AI to get an end product that you want that is useful without you having to do a lot of editing or just a lot of telling it it's wrong to redo it. And we also want to discuss what some of those barriers are in terms of adopting it, using it, not being overly reliant on it, and how comfortable is your team with AI, and a little bit of a discussion on some of the safeguards that you should be thinking about in using AI and some of the pitfalls and drawbacks that it does have as a technology. So, Asia, thinking about AI, we talked a little bit about this in our last conversation, but what are some challenges that could have been made a lot easier if you used AI, just looking throughout your career?
For sure. Challenges that I think AI could have been very useful would definitely be organizing things. I think organizing just in terms of like alphabetizing. Yes, we have Excel spreadsheets, but in the nonprofit world, when you're collecting data, sometimes when you're in the field, it is not that easily accessible to pull up Excel on your phone, or you're not even thinking about Excel. You're just collecting that data in real time. And so if you have it in a certain document, I think back in the day, having AI to be there to already manually automate that alphabetizing would have been good, or create a different structure for it would have definitely helped in terms of time as well. Another challenge that I think AI could have been very beneficial for, not for me personally, but for former clients, is a strategy approach. I think sometimes nonprofits fall into the rabbit hole of forgetting the trajectory that they're on because they're being so reactive to the community's needs, and as they should be. But I think when we think about it from a project management standpoint, this is the difference between those that are working within the field and then those that sit on the board and then those that are doing a little bit of both in terms of in the C-suite of it all. AI could have definitely been a tool implemented to better help people stay on track in terms of automating certain emails to come out to you. Hey, now's the time to go and check your strategic plan, or you're rapidly approaching your deadline for whichever meeting or whatever grant you wanted to look into before it even becomes public for submissions. And so those are a few challenges that I can think of. What about you?
For sure. I would give a +1 on the project management piece, kind of working backwards. Sometimes if I'm trying to conceptualize how to work within a 12, 14-week time frame on a project with a partner, I'll just say this is the deadline. This is I'll upload the RFA, and this is how intensive the grant is. Like, how would you break this up to leave enough buffer time for any kind of reviews, get this in a week before the deadline, and just have that give a little bit of a baseline. And I always, again, underscoring that you always want to check this work and make sure it's relevant and applicable, but it's a great way to kind of just get a base on how you want to organize this project, who you want to activate. If there are letters of support that are a part of this grant, it'll say, by week 4, reach out to your partners, and things that when you're trying to balance all of this at once, AI is a great way to kind of put that together and give you a little bit of a starting point. I feel sometimes there's this sense of analysis paralysis where you have so much that you're considering, so much to do for a particular grant. It can be really hard to take that first step. And I find that AI can be really useful in kind of breaking the ice, getting you into that creative flow, and giving you something to iterate off of instead of feeling that challenge to get everything together all at once.
So as we still further reflect on these moments throughout this module, what are your thoughts on the ethical component? Because, to be frank, there are a lot of people that still see AI as just a big no-no all across the board because they don't want to contribute to whatever it's beginning to perpetuate or become a standard of norm. So what are your thoughts around the ethical considerations that we can take into consideration?
I think maybe a little bit counter to what you said. That's a personal ethical choice. I personally believe that this is something that is, the cat's already out of the bag. It's already going to be out there, and it's how you use it effectively and ethically. Because I'm already seeing organizations that rely on it, are making things a little bit more automated. They're able to put their staff on more of the important work as opposed to some of the administrative work. When I think about the ethics of AI, I think a lot about looking at that company and how they might be tweaking the dial on the algorithm. So thinking about how different social media networks are optimized to make you feel certain emotions, get you to stay on their website a little bit longer. I think it's worthwhile to do a little bit of a deep dive on, how Grok through X might be optimized versus ChatGPT versus a Claude, and just thinking about how some of those, whether it's political biases, are starting to influence how the AI looks, just the overall kind of responses you get from each of these chatbots, I think is really key as well. And I think just always having your finger on the pulse, like just not trusting this prompt that you're putting in and what's being spit out, but maybe whether it's like once a month, once a quarter, just like making sure you're staying current on the differences between these different AI models and what each one is good for. Like, for example, there's one that's specifically about the extension service throughout the United States, looking at extension-only publications, methods, strategies, best practices. So you can say, I'm trying to plant tomatoes in Kentucky. What should I be doing with my soil? And it'll look at specifically those sources. Similarly, there's AI services that look at peer-reviewed articles. So if you're doing a lot of if you're trying to get works cited, if you're trying to strengthen more of your academic writing, academic grants, looking for research for different things you might not have considered, but might strengthen, contrast the work that you've already put together. So it's like a tool. You don't use a hammer on a screw. So it's always making sure you are aware of the pros and cons and drawbacks of each of these AI models and leveraging the right one for the right instance.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. So as you've gotten a lot of information from this conversation between Anthony and I in terms of AI considerations, integration, and most importantly, the ethics, right? We really want you to take this time to truly reflect on that last question that you're seeing right in front of you, right? What safeguards should be in place for ethical AI use? Because the reality is we are here. It is an emerging tool that all parts of our industry is implementing, but also we have to be ahead of the curve and be very intentional as human beings to make sure that we're using it ethically and we're creating these boundaries or safeguards. And so take this time to reflect on that, as well as the other questions as well in terms of integration or ethical consideration as it relates to AI in your grant writing strategy and grant management process.